They're the best of what they do, and that's terrorizing trails across the country. On four wheels, your AMSOIL Grand National Cross Country champion is Chris Borch. On two, it's Caleb Russell. The defending champions are ready for the 2014 season, and we've got highlights from round one next. It's Racer TV back for 2014 on the NBC Sports Network. I'm your host, Jason Wygant, and this is the opening round of the AMSOIL Grand National Cross Country Series, the Moose Racing Mucker GNCC, aptly named here in Florida. This event runs alongside the famed Daytona Bike Week. And Florida in the springtime, thanks to rain and the low water table, means as soon as the riders start digging down deep into the dirt, well, we find some mud. We'll be covering the bikes and the ATVs today from our opening round and giving you all the highlights. The cool thing about Grand National Cross Country Racing is that it's a motorsport for the everyman. There are amateur classes out there for riders as young as age 5, all the way up to 60 years plus, beginners, intermediates, experts, and of course, professionals who are the best in the world at what they do. Every GNCC race starts with the blue flag, signaling it's time to turn off the engines and survey the start area. We'll start our coverage with the four-wheeled ATV division here from Florida. Everyone looking to knock off five-time champion Chris Borch, including the number 4 from last season, Chris Bithell. Third last year, the fun-loving Adam McGill, who has a good time before, after, and during the races, and a lot of hype behind the number 2, Walker Fowler, 2 years in the pro class, 2 times. He has finished second behind Borch. But as you can see here, Borch not impressed by the credentials of any of these riders. He's as confident as ever as he tries to make himself a 6-time champion this year and also has a shot at the all-time career lead in GNCC race wins with a couple victories this season. And he starts off the 2014 campaign brilliantly with a hole shot. Twin Air and DeRisi Racing putting up a couple $100 as a reward for Borch, getting to the orange stripe first. Now, normally Borch's style is actually to hang back early on. These are 2-hour races. They are true tests of endurance, both for rider and machine. And normally he chooses to save his best stuff for late. And true to form, Borch would cough up the lead early, although it was somewhat surprising who was getting around him. Bithell, his good buddy, an even worse starter normally, is up to the early lead. Brian Wolf in third. Here's an idea of how dynamic the terrain is in GNCC. A bad line choice by Bithell. He goes all the way to the right. Borch goes to the left. And you can see they're trying to work together in tandem to figure out the best way through this section. A unique element to Grand National Cross Country Racing. The riders cannot ride or practice on the track at all until the race begins. They can walk the course and survey it on foot, but you have to be able to read the terrain and learn it as you race it. One of the old school elements of this type of racing. And often on these first laps, you see the riders somewhat tiptoeing around as they figure out the best way to go. Plus, they have to deal with such a wide variety of terrain, from the harsh woods and the deep sand whoops and the mud. Now we go into this man-made section of jumps and obstacles, which are really just set up so the fans have an opportunity to see the best riders in the world do their thing. So Bithell, again, normally not a great starter, showing a different strategy early in 2014 and not messing around. You normally don't see riders open up leads like this early in the races. Normally there's a bit of a pack mentality as everyone kind of measures each other early on, and you can see everyone else is doing that as you see second, third, and fourth all hooked up in a race. And note all the standing water they're splashing through in what is supposed to be one of the easier portions of the course. All that mud would be a huge factor toward the end of the race. A lot of riders having difficulty just getting their machines to the finish line. But the real challenge, trying to catch Chris Bithell, who was off and flying early on. Here you see Borch, Fowler, McGill, Wolf, all the top riders trying to reel him in as they head back into the deep stuff early in the race. We'll have more from our top four-wheeled riders later in the show. When we come back, we'll highlight the top riders in our bike divisions. Stay with us on Racer TV.
twins have notoriously been very hard on crankshafts because that big long stroke with those 2 cylinders just flexes the crankshaft around. So we were seeing bearing issues. Research development people at AMSOIL could show us that it was likely an oil problem. And they were correct. That was the issue. Instead of having to redesign the engine, I just had to do a better quality oil.
Racer TV is brought to you by AMSOIL, by Rocky Mountain ATV MC, and by Can-Am. Racer TV's coverage of the opening round of the AMSOIL Grand National Cross Country Series heads towards the bikes. Number 1, Caleb Russell, your defending champion, going to deal with new challengers this year. The number 9, Jason Thomas, and the number 10, Andrew DeLong, moving up from the 250 class to the bigger 450 bikes this year. And also a newcomer, Ryan Sipes, superstar of motocross and supercross, joining the Woods Brigade this year. Traditional favorites, the number 5, Paul Whibley, a 2-time series champ. A 1-time series champion, Josh Strang, now switching over like Whibley to Yamahas this year. Chris Bach, last year's number 3, now with a factory Honda Rockstar Racing ride. And last year's runner-up on the number 112, Charlie Mullins. He's also won this title before. They're all gunning for KR1, Caleb Russell. Multiple championships, youth, amateur, and 250 classes here. Now riding the Premier Division XC1 Pro, carrying that number 1 plate. Just like the ATVs will turn the engines off when they wave the flag, we're going racing and the season's underway. Big pileup out of turn 1, and you will not believe who's in it. Both Russell and Mullins, the riders who were 1 and 2 in last year's championship, start in last and next to last, while Strang on his Rocky Mountain ATV MC Yamaha leads them early on the number 4. You don't even see the likes of Russell and Mullins in the picture early, but we'll show you them here on the Rocky Mountain ATV MC replay. Russell in the middle of the screen, see the legs flying? He's about to hit the deck head first and hard. Not the way you want to start the season. Mullins actually tangled up a little bit further off to the left. The number 9, Thomas, also down in it. Those guys would have a long way to go. Whibley on the number 5, AmPro NFAB Yamaha, takes the lead from Strang as the riders work their way through the mud. Earlier we mentioned the 250 class. That's for young up-and-coming riders. We'll head back to the start and show you what that class looks like. The number 1 is Grant Baylor, but he gets squeezed out by Shane Hufford on the number 11, who will grab the digital offroad.com hole shot. And Hufford will proceed to put in the race of his life, running up front all day long in a bid for his first ever career victory in this class. And look at how many young riders are in it, all of them hoping to someday become the next Russell, Whibley, Mullins, Strang, basically superstars of the XC1 division on the big bikes. And these kids go for it, and because they're young, a lot of them under the age of 20, they've got limitless energy. On the opposite end of the spectrum, veterans like Whibley and Strang have been at this game for a long time. We raced for 3 hours in the Bike Pro Race, which puts a premium on fitness, and no one is fitter or stronger than Whibley. And with the big advantage he has off the start, things are looking good for him. But also looking good, the ex-motocrosser Ryan Sipes, now around Strang and up to second on his WMR KTM. So now the battle is on. Whibley, who's won races and titles in this series before, against Sipes, who's never raced a GNCC before, but certainly knows how to ride a motorcycle fast over grueling terrain. Then it's Thad Duval in 4th, and look, finally on the radar, Mullins. Stay with us.
Sometimes you come across something so different, you just have to stop and check it out. The Rocky Mountain ATV MC website has everything you need, from our huge selection of tires, ATV and UTV accessories, and OEM parts, to our online chat, customer reviews, and instructional videos. Our extensive inventory means most orders arrive in 3 days or less. Get low prices, quick shipping, and incredible customer service. RockyMountainATVMC.com. Get ready.
Racer TV is brought to you by AMSOIL, by Rocky Mountain ATV MC, and by Can-Am. Welcome back. It's highlights of round one of the AMSOIL Grand National Cross Country Series and AMA National Championship. It's the Moose Racing Mucker GNCC. We'll go back to our ATV division, and in our XC slow-mo, you can really see how hard the suspension has to work. When we set up these special sections for the fans to watch, we set up some jumps, and that really taxes suspension systems that are really designed to absorb roots, ruts, and rocks down there in the woods. Now it's time to bring out some heavy metal. It's your Can-Am Pro 4x4 class. So exciting to get the best 4x4 ATV riders in one class, in one race, every morning in the GNCC Tour. It's something new this year, and they put on a show. These are 700-pound machines, and they were flying around this course just like they were on the, well, not even the pro ATVs, but heck, the darn motorcycles, which weigh about 200 pounds. The aptly named Michael Swift led early. Then Robert Smith would take over the lead here as the riders worked their way through the pine forest. There's Swift right behind, keeping the pressure on. Rick Checo also in the hunt. Kevin Trantham, Brian Buchanan, and Jordan Phillips. They're the 6th fastest 4x4 riders in the world, and these big machines absolutely ate up the muddy conditions here at the Mud Mucker. It's Swift currently leading the thing right now, but with these riders so close, it would really come down to making the least amount of mistakes in this 2-hour, 10 a.m. event. And since every one of them has proven themselves with championships in different divisions of GNCC 4x4 racing, it was anyone's guess how it was going to turn out once the checkers were weighed. Swift was running an incredible pace for most of the day, but unfortunately was beset by mechanical problems. The consistency of Kevin Trantham paid off. He takes the victory, your first ever 4x4 Pro Class winner. Nice guy out of Hot Springs, North Carolina, has got to be happy about his championship hopes for the new season. We go back to the XC1 ATVs. It continues to be Chris Bithell leading the way, with Chris Borich putting the pressure on right behind him. And now we see Walker Fowler starting to get into the mix, but every time he began to make a move on the lead duo, a little mistake like that would cost him, and he would give some time back. You could almost see it in the body language of other riders who are trying to avoid trouble in the mud, taking it easy through some of those difficult sections. In comparison, your leader, Bithell, was absolutely letting it all hang out. But there's something special about Chris Borich, and that's what makes him a 5-time GNCC champ. It doesn't matter how well the day is going for someone else. You see Fowler getting in the hunt also. Borich always seems to have a certain magic later in the day, and nobody knows it better than his good buddy Bithell. For every line the leader hit right, for every mud hole he got through without incident, he knew that Borich would be back there stalking him. And Fowler was right there as well. There's an interesting strategy that breaks out in every Grand National cross-country race. We mentioned the opening laps when the riders are just learning the course and everyone stays in close formation. But it's the stretch run, the final half hour of the 2-hour event, the last lap, where the cream always rises to the top. And on this day, it will be Bithell, Borich, and Fowler setting a pace that no one else was able to match. And while the deep mud caused mechanical troubles for many, like Wolf and McGill, who had run up front early, there was no surprise when Borich emerged in the lead as the white flag was flying. And now it will be up to Bithell and Fowler to keep him in sight and try to perform upset duties. They would have to pass the champion just when he was at the top of his game. In slow motion, you can see the subtleties of Chris Borich's skill. A little log on the exit of this water crossing. He gets on the brakes, to the top, and then hard on the gas. Everyone else bumping and bouncing around, doing everything they can to catch him. Bithell would do it. Into the final field section we would go. After 2 hours, miraculously, it would come down to the final quarter mile. These two good buddies setting each other up inside and outside in every corner. And remember what we said about the mud causing mechanical havoc on these four-wheeled ATVs? Well, for a moment, it looked like bad luck was going to beset the champ as steam started spewing from Borich's radiator. But sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. The champ knows exactly how hard he can push his machine before he's pushed it too far. And he managed to multitask, not only holding off Bithell down through the final corners, but also holding back just enough to make sure his machine didn't overheat and stop running completely. When it was all said and done, your 5-time GNCC champion had started his quest for a 6th straight title on top. Chris Borich, your winner of the Moose Racing Mucker GNCC. Bithell happy about a spectacular performance in 2nd, with Fowler finishing up in 3rd. The rest of the AMSOIL results show Jared McClure a good rebound after a rough season last year in 4th, and one of the new kids, Josh Merritt, inside the top 5. That's the ATVs. More bikes after this.
What do you call a machine that combines precision-engineered handling, industry-leading power, and a rider-focused design? We call it a Can-Am. From the essentials to fully loaded, you'll find that same combination in every ATV and side-by-side we build. And right now, get your own for as low as $149 a month. Can-Am, the ride says it all.
Racer TV is brought to you by AMSOIL, by Rocky Mountain ATV MC, and by Can-Am. Halfway through the opener, the AMSOIL Grand National Cross Country Series, the veteran out of New Zealand, Paul Whibley, a new father, is showing the field that he's its daddy. But there's another Papa Bear in these woods. Charlie Mullins, from dead last and a crash off the start, has climbed to the number 2 position and is ready to do battle for the lead. Mullins is originally from Ohio, now lives in North Carolina, but for some strange reason, he seems to be at his best in the deep sand of Florida. Doesn't matter what location the GNCC opener is held, if it's in the Sunshine State, the number 112 is hard to stop. So now it was up to Whibley to do everything he could to stop Mullins from getting around him. But Whibley, just like everyone else in the XC1 Pro class, couldn't do it, and Mullins would take over the lead in the field section. Now it was Whibley on the Yamaha who'd have to try to keep him honest. A little bit further back, Russell was performing similar come-from-behind heroics, getting the 3rd until this crash knocked him back. He would get back up and on the gas as the riders approached the halfway mark and pit stops. Here's Mullins in the FMF KTM pit, getting fresh goggles and a full tank of fuel, and maintaining the lead. There's Whibley a little bit further down in the Ampro NFAB Yamaha tent, getting similar treatment. For everyone else, though, things were about to get nasty. Here's Russell up to 3rd. He's facing pressure from RideMPS.com AMSOIL Honda's Thad Duvall, who you see in the red and blue gear. And then not too far behind Duvall is your early race leader, Strang. We'll pop into the back of the picture here in just a moment. You see all this mud? Well, just like the ATVs, it could do some serious damage to the machines, especially when you go down a few times, like happened to Russell. So as these 3 push the pace through the slop, something had to give. And as Russell pulled into the pits, his engine died. The electric starter wouldn't get it fired, so the team went to work the old-fashioned way, trying to bump start him down the pits. There's 1 attempt, 2 attempts, rear wheel locks up, engine doesn't fire. Meanwhile, the Yamaha folks are ready for Strang to drop in, putting Russell 1 more position further down. KTM people are still pushing. They eventually would get the machine started, but the champ would finish a disappointing 9th. But his teammate, Charlie Mullins, no such trouble. As usual, on the gas and unstoppable in Florida, even after starting in dead last. On this day, the number 112 was simply untouchable. But they don't call Paul Whibley the Badger for nothing. Once he gets on you, he doesn't give up. He stayed close enough to Mullins to stay far ahead of everyone else. And the 2-time series champ was happy to start his season with a solid runner-up ride. There's just something about the Florida sunshine that works so well for Charlie Mullins. Down the stretch, he opened up a huge lead. And the only people there at the finish line to watch for, well, that was his crew, because there certainly weren't any other riders in sight. Charlie Mullins starts the year off right with a victory at the Moose Racing Mucker GNCC. The new Papa Wibbly would bring it home in a solid second. Consistency wins titles. It's worked for Wibbly before, and he was happy the way he started this season out. Behind him, a furious battle was raging between Strang and Duval for the final top 3 spot. And as Wibbly crosses the line in second, the focus would shift rearward. Here it was, Strang just in front of the Honda rider on his Yamaha. It was a mad chase down to the line. After 3 hours, they were still within about 5 seconds of each other, and Duval simply would not give up. Strang, the Australian, and Duval, a rider born and raised in the GNCC series. In fact, Duval's dad is one of the all-time greats of the four-wheeled ATV championship. But in this day, they were dead even on speed, meeting somewhere in the middle down here in Florida as they raced it out. Certainly the most exciting action down the stretch. Strang doing a good job keeping lap riders at bay. But Duval getting closer and closer and closer. The fans were starting to get fired up. This one was going to go down to the wire. Now Duval's trying to show wheels to the inside. Strang going to have to protect. Into the last corner they go. Strang holds on for third, completely exhausting himself in the process. Here are your AMSOIL results on the opener. Andrew DeLong in his pro debut finishes 5th. Stuart Baylor bouncing back from a rough season last year, 6th. Sipes in his GNCC debut finishes 8th. Russell and Japan's Takeshi Koikita round out the top 10. In the 250 division, XC2 Pro Lights, Rory Mead out of New Zealand taking the win. Shane Hufford, who led for the majority of laps, finishes 3rd. Ricky Russell 2nd on a Yamaha. Defending champ Grant Baylor, a disappointing 6th. Well, that's the action from an exciting season opener for 2014. In the ATV division, it was all about the Killer Bees. Aptly on their yellow and black Suzukis, Chris Bithell and Chris Borich waged war through the trees all day. Finally, Borich, in his patented fashion, takes the lead and the victory in the last lap. As for the bikes, your series favorites, Caleb Russell and Charlie Mullins, were down on the ground in turn 1. But 3 hours later, Mullins emerged with a dominant victory, setting a tone for the new season. For everyone at Racer TV, I'm Jason Wygant. Be sure to catch GNCC action all year on NBC Sports Network.